Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga with our beloved Ranga. We are on the conditions of the synthesis, page 10, beginning with the sentence, "That which nature has evolved for us and has firmly founded is the bodily life."
So, in the previous paras, there are two paras and before this, he has told us that there are three stages in the evolution of nature. That which has already evolved, that which is in the process of being evolved, and that which has to evolve. So, obviously, he means, which I am going to read that now, obviously means the first stage is the life coming out of matter, the combination of matter and life producing insects, living creatures, animals, even the largest animals, that much has been achieved. What about man? But man goes to the next level of the human mind. And the mind, Sri Aurobindo says, is still in the process of developing. Not everybody is very intellectual and highly developed. They use their mind, only the lower part of the mind. The mind has got three levels: the physical mind, the vital mind, and the pure mind. The pure mind is that which is objective, seeks knowledge, does not allow the influence of body and life to affect it. Remains impervious to the needs of the body and the desires of the vital. That is the true mental capacity, logic, one which has got logic in it. Okay, so that's a mind. So now, with this background, we'll read what he's saying. That which nature has evolved for us and has firmly founded is the bodily life. So, very clearly, bodily life, that means a combination of matter and life. Okay, which includes all the animals and all living creatures. Right from the unicellular creatures, right up to man also, because he also has a bodily life. She has effected a certain combination and harmony of the two inferior but most fundamentally necessary elements of our action and progress upon earth. So, two inferior, they are the lowest level of the planes of existence, matter and life. But most fundamentally necessary elements of our action and progress upon earth. Matter, which, however the two ethereally spiritual may despise it, is our foundation and the first condition of all our energies and realizations. And the life energy, which is our means of existence in a material body and the basis there even of our mental and spiritual activities. She has successfully achieved a certain stability of her constant material movement, which is at once sufficiently steady and durable and sufficiently pliable and mutable to provide a fit dwelling place and instrument for the progressively manifesting God in humanity. This is what is meant by the fable in the Aitareya Upanishad, which tells us that the gods rejected the animal form successively offered to them by the divine self, and only when man was produced cried out, "This indeed is perfectly made," and consented to enter into it. She has effected also a working compromise between the inertia of matter and the active life that lives in and feeds on it, by which not only is vital existence sustained, but the fullest developments of mentality are rendered possible. This equilibrium constitutes the basic status of nature in man and is termed, in the language of yoga, his gross body composed of the material or food sheath and the nervous system or vital vehicle. So he has described quite clearly that the nature has evolved quite sufficiently, quite fully, matter and life. This much he has said.
But there's nothing negative in what he has written.
No,
There's no negativity.
absolutely not.
And this indeed is perfectly made. You have to talk to me a little bit about that.
Because what are the practical possibilities of a divine life? In matter, almost zero. Matter can't realize the divine because it's almost the opposite of the divine. What about life? Can an insect or a higher animal do yoga and realize God? No. That's why the body, the biological organism of the body does not allow you to go beyond a certain level. And you have to go beyond a certain level to be able to aspire and do a yogic life. So when mind develops, the mind is capable of transcending itself. So that is the reason why conscious yoga, Sri Aurobindo says, starts with man. Even there is in the cat and the dog, there is some sort of aspiration. But the possibility of an active yoga is not there in the animal world. They can't. They have to evolve up to the mental human stage, then evolution can become conscious.
But some of them can take a human birth in the next life.
When they take a human birth, normally that human birth is at a very, very preliminary stage.
Primitive level.
Yeah. Undeveloped or distorted or mentally not developed. Okay. There's even a phrase, a technical phrase for that. Mongoloid, they call it.
Yes.
Mongoloids are those who are not fully developed. Okay. We have had several cases in the ashram like that. Okay. So even their features are very peculiar. They walk also in almost in an animalish manner. I remember one girl was there. She is even living now. She is of that type. But there are others who are bodily quite fit. They will be speaking quite sensibly, but no mental development at all. That also is possible, we have seen. But human beings have the possibility of awakening to a higher life. Even if the cat has an aspiration, he can never do yoga consciously like man can do. That is what is meant by the fable. And in fact, Sri Aurobindo says that repeatedly. He says that life, matter and life up to that stage, nature was evolving unconsciously. But when man comes into the picture, her evolution becomes conscious in man and through man. In fact, he says something interesting. He says, nature, in order to hasten her own evolution, produces man. So that's the explanation for that Aitareya Upanishad. Okay? So. And another interesting thing which we note is, there is an evolution, but as the evolution goes from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, there is no rejection of the lower. In the animal, matter is transformed into a living body. There is no rejection. There is no life without matter. Interesting if you think about it. Okay? Think of the wind. It is only energy, but there is no matter. So it is unconscious. Apparently unconscious. Okay, the storm. It's an energy. It is life. But it is not conscious energy. So, that is what he means. And this is a very big chapter afterwards called, in Life Divine, Ascent and Integration. Nature goes from matter to life and integrates life into itself. Then when mind comes also, mind also integrates life and matter into itself. That's why you have human beings with a body, with a vital and a... If you have a human consciousness without a body, there can't be evolution. Once you go into the higher planes of consciousness, you are a human consciousness. You may even have a vital. You may even have a subtle body. When you go out in dreams, you do go out in your subtle body. But there, evolution is not there. You have to be in your body to evolve. You have to take a physical body. Remember also the other principle, all the spiritual planes of consciousness are static. Static means immutable. The mutability is only in the physical world. How can there be, in immutability there can be no progress, because it is static. So that's why the world is mutable, therefore evolution is possible.
So we hear that people from other planets have come to Earth and taken up a body.
This is still being researched and we really don't know too much about it. We don't know whether they have a body and we don't know whether that body is a subtle body. All these things are really not yet fully known. So, yes, the reports are extensively increasing now, more and more, that there are beings outside who come and interact with us. But we don't know. All that is left for the future too. Okay, so
shall we move on to the next para?
Yeah. So I'll do one thing. We have discussed it, but I'll quickly read out the summary so that we get the gist of what he's saying. The first step in the evolution of nature is the bodily life, combination of matter and life. Nature has made dead matter come alive by letting life enter into matter, and she has harmonized the two apparently. Okay? Then, she has harmonized the two apparently contradictory terms of matter and life. The ascetic condemns matter as unconscious, gross, dense, destructive of all upward effort towards perfection. But we must remember, matter is a God-created foundation and base for all superstructure to be built on that solid stability. As for life, it is a base for all upper activities. Also, since without life's vitality, there can be no activity and therefore no progress. Progress means activity, and activity needs vitality. Logical. Nature's evolution of life and matter has produced a series of species which seem to be stable enough, and this stability seems to be sufficient enough for nature to invite God to enter into life forms. But the Aitareya Upanishad says that the gods rejected the animal form for their habitation, but approved of the human body when created. They consented to enter into the human form. Now, with the emergence of mind from life, nature has made possible the entry into supra-intellectual forms. The successful harmonization of matter and life has produced the gross body or the food sheath, the Annamaya Kosha. This is what he said.
So, my question is, what gods decided to enter into the human form?
I didn't follow the question, sorry.
It says that the gods agreed to enter into a human form.
Yes.
What gods? The gods.
Oh, what God? No, the Supreme Spirit.
The Supreme Spirit.
Yeah.
So it's not
divine at the highest level.
Okay, fine.
That's what a psychic being is, no?
Yes.
It's essentially divine.
But when he says the gods agreed...
he is referring to the Upanishad. That's not his language, it's the Upanishad language.
Very good. Now I got it. Thank you.
If then this inferior equilibrium is the basis and first means of the higher movements which the universal power contemplates, and if it constitutes the vehicle in which the divine here seeks to reveal itself, if the Indian saying is true that the body is the instrument provided for the fulfillment of the right law of our nature, then any final recoil from the physical life must be a turning away from the completeness of the divine wisdom and a renunciation of its aim in earthly manifestation. So, a huge sentence. We'll look at that afterward. Basically, he's saying nature, it has created matter and body and life. So, who are we to reject it? We have to use it. Okay, so the ascetic is rejecting. And when he is rejecting, any final recoil. Now, that's interesting because he's using the word final recoil. Why? Because final recoil means no coming back. But if temporary recoil is allowed in Sri Ramdas Yoga. You follow? An ascetic is finally recoiling from matter and life. But in Sri Ramdas Yoga, a temporary recoil is allowed because you have to detach yourself from body, mind, life. I am not body, I am not vital, I am not the mind. So there is a dichotomy created between your Prakriti and your Purusha. So, final is not allowed. But temporary is allowed in Sri Ramdas Yoga. In fact, all yoga, you have to do that. Neti, neti. Na iti, na iti, na iti. Alright, so I go to the next sentence. Such a refusal may be, owing to some secret law of their development, the right attitude for certain individuals, but never the aim intended for mankind.
That's very
wonderful. So some people, the sole need is to escape. Sri Ramdas says, fine, nothing. Because why should the divine create only one aim for everybody? No. In fact, a very good example is Ramana Maharshi. Okay? They went and told Ramana Maharshi that Sri Ramdas is talking about next step of evolution and talking of the going to a higher level. So what do you say? Because you are saying that going to the self is enough. So he said, I have never felt the need to go beyond what I have achieved. In other words, that particular soul is destined for this particular work. All souls are not meant to go and do Sri Ramdas Yoga. In fact, Sri Ramdas says in another place, there are 3 possibilities when you achieve liberation. 3 possibilities. The soul can decide that it does not want rebirth anymore. Perfectly valid. So you dissolve your individuality and disappear into the infinite from where you came. The wave disappears into the sea.
Which is what the divine is asking Savitri to do. 3 times he asks her, come into my
eternal peace.
Yes.
But she refuses. No, that's not my swadharma. I have to do some other work. And finally, when she insists on that, he says, I now agree with you and I will cooperate with you and I will use you as my instrument in the world. I will pour delight into you as in a jar. Beautiful descriptions are there. I will use you as my sword in the world. I'm not using the exact words, but that passage is absolutely magnificent.
Yes, yes. So the second one?
So the first possibility, disappear. Get rid of your individuality. Second possibility, I don't disappear into the I retain my individuality, but I don't take rebirth. I remain in the subtle fields and I can help others if they want. Many, many disembodied souls are there in the subtle worlds.
Where would Ramakrishna be?
I can't answer that question, but surely he was there for a long time, just like Sri Ramdas and Mother are there in the subtle world now.
Yes.
We can call him. Mother said very clearly he is there in the subtle physical and you can contact him. So he is still there. In fact, he told Mother that I will take birth only in the first supramental body. So until then, he is not going to dissolve himself. He is retaining his individuality. So that's the second possibility. Third possibility, with a divine transformed consciousness, I will enter life and matter again and do God's work. So these are the three possibilities. And each one is valid for that particular soul. There is no need for everybody to do Surrender Yoga. That's what he's saying. Isn't it? See, such a refusal of what? To come back into life. Okay? Such a refusal may be, owing to some secret law of their development, the right attitude for certain individuals, but never the aim intended for mankind. Everybody should not go away. If everybody goes away, what will be the logical consequence? There will be no progress here. Because progress is there when somebody with superior consciousness comes and spreads the knowledge.
So Earth would be just plants and animals? If
everybody disappears, only plants. No, human beings also could be there because this is an interesting question which many people ask me. Okay, he says that if people are getting liberated and going, how is the population increasing? It should be decreasing. So the answer is quite simple. It's not complicated. When the one divine, individualizes himself, what is the last element of individualization? The atom. And what are the number of atoms? Infinite. And each atom contains the divine consciousness and is slowly developing. The supply from the lower is never ended. It is going on, coming, going on, coming, going on, coming.
Once Aurobindo Basu said to me, that people think the world is overpopulated, but they don't know how much more could be coming down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Coming from below as well as from above. Okay. So, such a refusal may be owing to some secret law of their development, the right attitude for certain individuals, but never the aim intended for mankind. It can be, therefore, no integral yoga which ignores the body or makes its annulment or its rejection indispensable to a perfect spirituality. Rather, the perfecting of the body also should be the last triumph of the spirit, and to make the bodily life also divine must be God's final seal upon His work in the universe. We'll discuss that. The obstacle which the physical presents to the spiritual is no argument for the rejection of the physical. For in the unseen providence of things, our greatest difficulties are our best opportunities. A supreme difficulty is nature's indication to us of a supreme conquest to be won and an ultimate problem to be solved. It is not a warning of an inextricable snare to be shunned or of an enemy too strong for us from whom we must flee. So he says, there is a divine element in man which says, the more the problem and the more I will conquer it. And we can see that in the physical world. No? There's Mount Everest, I'll climb it. And they did it. There was I usually give these very ordinary examples. The 4-minute mile. Okay. So Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile first. Then the 10 seconds, 100 meters. It was a challenge, but people did it. Now they said going to the moon was impossible. We have gone to the moon. So what is not possible? The more the challenge, the more man will do it. So that is what nature is doing. Forcing you to go beyond yourself. She is creating difficulties and tell you, go now, do this, do that.
I met Tenzing Norgay.
Oh, you did?
In Kalimpong. the most humble man you could imagine. And we talked for half an hour. He never said that he climbed it first. He never said that. But he did. He was there before the Englishman.
Yeah.
Bannister. Yeah, I don't remember who.
What was his name? Edmund Hillary.
Hillary. That's right.
Edmund Hillary.
He climbed it before Hillary.
From New Zealand.
Yes.
So, that's what Srimde is saying. Is it clear? Or should we go through each sentence? I think it's quite clear.
Very
No?
clear.
Equally, he has dealt with matter. And he says that the integral yoga will not accept the final rejection of matter. Initially you can, because you have to say, I am not the body, I am not the vital. So Srimde used the word final recoil. Final recoil not allowed. If you want to do integral yoga. If you want to do other yoga, okay, fine, no problem. Because it may be special need for that particular soul. You can do that, but not here. In fact, one of the greatest of spiritual giants, Buddha, did that.
Yes.
He disappeared and advised others also to do it.
But this is a very interesting thing that you bring up, because most people don't understand, or they're not aware that Sri Aurobindo said everything is possible for people. If they want to leave, they can leave.
Yeah. He has mentioned this elsewhere.
Yeah, elsewhere.
3 possibilities.
In Life Divine also?
Yes, I think it's in Life Divine. Okay, so equally, now he's talking about life. We don't reject the vital also. We purify it. That's what he's going to say in this para. Equally, the vital and nervous energies in us are there for a great utility. They too demand the divine realization of their possibilities in our ultimate fulfillment. The great part assigned to this element in the universal scheme is powerfully emphasized by the Catholic wisdom of the Upanishads. He is quoting, as the spokes of a wheel in its nave, so in the life energy is all established. The triple knowledge of the sacrifice and the power of the strong and the purity of the wise. Under the control of the life energy is all this that is established in the triple heaven. Then, it is therefore no integral yoga that kills these vital energies, forces them into a nerveless quiescence, or roots them out as the source of noxious activities. Their purification, not their destruction, their transformation, control and utilization is the aim in view with which they have been created and developed in us. So, the vital is also not to be rejected and it has to be used. Why? Because it's the energy that allows you to live and move and act. If the vital is not there, you will not be able to move at all. In fact, if the vital is not there, you will die. It is life that energizes you. This is very interesting, even in a car. Okay? If you don't give it energy, the car won't move. And you give it energy from what? From petrol, from this, or electricity, or whatever. So energy is necessary. If energy is not there, you can't move. So the vital is not to be rejected. In fact, those who kill the vital, okay, that's an interesting thing we discussed elsewhere. Suppose you find that my vital is very, very dirty and full of desires, and you try to control the desires, the vital will protest. Because they, just like light and sunlight and heat are embedded in the sun, very difficult to distinguish the two, vital desires are absolutely part of the vital. So the vital will protest. And the protest can take 2 forms, he says. If you are a strong person, okay, you will fly into a rage and you will you'll revolt against normal things. It's a very interesting thing, I'll tell you. But if you are a weak person, you will get into depression because you are rejecting life. But if you are a strong person, the vital will say, you're trying to control me, I'll show you. And it goes into a rage. Okay? And it expresses itself in very funny places. Something totally unconnected somewhere, you will start getting angry with people. Or it will come out in other ways. And you don't know the cause of it. But the cause is you're trying to control your vital. So how to control the vital? Very, very in a gentle way, coaxing it, okay? Looking at it objectively, separating yourself from it. It's a very difficult process. So same way saying, the purification of the vital is necessary, not its rejection. If you reject it, you will be suffering. You will be the sufferer.
Recently, I was reading in questions and answers. I was reading, many times we have this idea that we will purify our mind and vital first and then purify our acts. But Mother says that's the wrong way. Mother says purify your acts and eventually, slowly with practice, you will be able to purify your mind and vital eventually.
Yeah.
So the movement for purification can also be outward in.
Yes.
But when we try to do it inward out, it is more difficult.
Yeah.
Because the vital and mental is already so impure.
So that's why it's those. You have to use all the three methods: aspiration, surrender to the divine, and rejection. Rejection also has to be done in a very, very gentle way. You reject your wrong thoughts, you reject your wrong emotions, you reject your desires, but in a very, very measured manner and not in a very violent manner. If you do it in a violent manner, it won't succeed. That's why they say that yoga is like a razor's edge. Little this way wrong, little that way wrong. It's very difficult. That's why Srimata says, the best way is to leave it to God. Surrender to Him. He will do the job. It's impossible for you to do the job. And if you do the job yourself, okay, you can get results. The Raj Yogin does that, the Tantrics do that. But then it's a very narrow result. And your ego may not also go. So these are the difficulties. Okay? So in this para, very clearly, not rejection of the vital, but transformation of the vital. Not rejection of the body, but transformation of the body. Srimata says in another place, he says, the body has got legitimate rights. The vital has got legitimate rights. The mind also has got legitimate rights, and you must see that their legitimate rights are fulfilled. So what is the legitimate right of the body? To be disease-free, to have very good health, and to be always full of strength and energy and strong, and if possible, conquest of death. These are the legitimate rights of a body. The body will demand that. You have to concede that it is okay. What about the vital? It must have the power of enjoyment. The vital is there for enjoyment, but pure enjoyment. We unfortunately, we learn to enjoy certain things and to get disgusted with other things. But the vital has to learn to enjoy everything. Even that which is unpleasant, it has to learn how to enjoy it. And that's possible only at the highest level or in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay, so then the mind. What is the legitimate demand of the mind? To have full knowledge, true knowledge. Now it has got only half-baked knowledge. Science is knowledge, but it is half-baked, not true knowledge. If the bodily life is what nature has firmly evolved for us as a base and first instrument, it is our mental life that she is evolving as her immediate next aim and superior instrument. Note She is still evolving it. It is not yet evolved. This, in her ordinary exaltations, is a lofty, preoccupying thought in her. This, except in her periods of exhaustion and recoil into a reposeful and recuperating obscurity, is her constant pursuit wherever she can get free from the trammels of her first vital and physical realizations. For here in man, we have a distinction which is of the utmost importance. He has in him not a single mentality, but a double and a triple, a mind material and nervous, the pure intellectual mind which liberates itself from the illusions of the body and the senses, and a divine mind above intellect which in its turn liberates itself from the imperfect modes of the logically discriminative and imaginative reason. Mind in man is first enmeshed in the life of the body, where in the plant it is entirely involved, and in animal always imprisoned. It accepts this life as not only the first, but the whole condition of its activities, and serves its needs as if they were the entire aim of existence. But the bodily life in man is a base, not the aim, his first condition and not his last determinant. In the just idea of the ancients, man is essentially the thinker, the Manu, the mental being who leads the life and the body, not the animal who is led by them. The true human existence, therefore, only begins when the intellectual mentality emerges out of the material and we begin more and more to live in the mind, independent of the nervous and physical obsession, and in the measure of that liberty are able to accept rightly and rightly to use the life of the body. For freedom and not a skillful subjection is the true means of mastery. A free, not a compulsory acceptance of the conditions, the enlarged and sublimated conditions of our physical being, is the high human ideal. But beyond this intellectual mentality is the divine. It's a very big para, and there are a lot of things to be said about it because the language is not very involved. We have to get it out. But one thing I'll just mention, okay? He has said earlier about the vital, which we did not discuss, okay? As the spokes of a wheel in its nave, so is the life energy is all established. The triple knowledge and the sacrifice and the power of the strong and the purity of the wise. Under the control of the life energy is all this that is established in the triple heaven. So what is this triple heaven? That's what is described now.
Good question, because I need it from my lexicon. I have a couple of answers, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. So the triple heaven is the physical mind, the intellectual mind, and the divine mind. That is, I think he described it very clearly he's quoting from the scriptures. Okay, and in the next paragraph which you read, he has said that if you read carefully, the physical mind, the intellectual mind, and the divine mind.
So how can the physical mind be a heaven?
The physical mind is very difficult to change. In fact, at one time, Sri was saying you have to ignore it. But when you go to the supramental level, the physical mind can be transformed. And that Sri called the mind of light. When the physical mind, and what is the physical mind? The physical mind is your manas, that which interprets the senses. That's all. It's a manas which receives data from the physical world and interprets them for you. If the manas is not there, you will only receive data from the physical world, but there will be no interpretation. In other words, you will be like a newborn baby. You are receiving. His eyes are there, his ears are there, he is hearing sounds, he sees his mother, understands nothing. Because the manas is not yet developed. Okay? That is the manas has to interpret the images. Oh, this is my mother. This word means this. The mind has to interpret. That's a manas. The physical mind.
So the physical mind, raised to its highest, is one of the triple heavens.
The physical mind, when the supramental light penetrates into it, becomes a mind of light. He calls it the mind of light. The physical mind itself does not go up. The light has to come and purify it. It's like the depth of the ocean. The lowest portion of the ocean is always dark, but it can be illumined from a light above. So there's a triple mind. So this is, and also what is the image? As the spokes of a wheel. First of all, below life is the matter. Then in the middle is life, and above that is the mind. But life is sending its spokes, energy into matter, and also sending it into mind. That's what the image says. In fact, how is life sending its spokes into matter? Nuclear energy. Even wood, you can burn and get energy out of it. Coal, examples of that. No? So, there is energy in matter. So, life has entered, but it is static. It also enters into mind and penetrates everything in the physical world. In fact, what is saying here, truth is that everything is involved in everything else. The divine is involved in all the lower elements right up to here. And matter also, substance is also involved in all the other elements. There is all a constant mixture, and absolute purity of each element is not there in manifestation. It is outside manifestation, yes. You can see them separately. You can experience them separately, but they are all one. Okay, so he has discussed the bodily life and said the integral yoga will not reject the body. Now he is saying the integral yoga will not reject the vital. If the bodily life, mind. If the bodily life is what nature has firmly evolved for us as a base and first instrument, it is our mental life that she is evolving as her immediate next aim and superior instrument. The body is an instrument, the vital is an instrument, but the mind is a far superior instrument. This, in her ordinary exaltations, is the lofty preoccupying thought in her. Who is the her? Nature. So nature is trying to evolve mind in man, and she has even done that for some higher animals also. Okay. This, except in her periods of exhaustion and recoil into a reposeful and recuperating obscurity, is her constant pursuit wherever she can get free from the troubles of her first vital and physical realizations. Now, is this clear? What is meaning? It's very clear what he's saying. I'll give you an example, you will immediately understand what he's saying. He has told you earlier, if you remember, nature is not drilled to a uniform march. You remember the sentence? I'll get it for you.
But all she does is cyclical?
Pardon?
Would you say that all she does is cyclical?
Yeah, that's right. And he doesn't say cyclical here, he says that in other places. That means it goes up and comes down, goes up and comes down. But every time it goes up slightly higher than before. Slightly. So it is spiral. It comes down. So when it comes down, then Srimad is using a very interesting word, but let me get that place for you. Okay, yeah, here it is. On page 10. For the march of nature is not drilled. Get page 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth line from the bottom, from the top. For the march of nature is not drilled to a regular and mechanical forward stepping. Very clear. So now he's developing the theme. He's saying that sometimes she rushes forward and sometimes she has deplorable retreats. If you remember the word, you were struck by the word deplorable. So, good example of that is the Greek civilization. Very high achievement. And then what happened? Deplorable retreat. What about the Vedic period in India? Very high development. Then a deplorable retreat. Srivda is not calling that deplorable retreat here. He is saying, he is using very interesting words. Repose. He is using the word recuperative repose. So, you have to understand what he is saying. Yeah? Very interesting, the words he is using. We'll go into that. Okay, so he's saying, this in her ordinary, I'm reading the para now, we read just now. This in her ordinary exaltation is the lofty preoccupying thought in her. This, except in her periods of exhaustion and recoil into a reposeful and recuperating obscurity. So when she has actually gone down, it is like you have run a 100-meter race or you have played a very, very vigorous football match and now you want to sleep. Recuperative obscurity. It's not really obscure. You are recovering your energies. So, the fall in Europe after that was a recuperative obscurity. Srimdo loves oxymorons. Look at that. So, here also you can say it's oxymoronic phrase. Recuperating obscurity. It's an obscurity that is trying to recover the light. Beautiful phrase. Okay? And at periods of exhaustion, you have made such an effort that now you fall back into it. This happens to everybody. One day if you work very hard, next day you want to take it easy. Okay, so recuperative obscurity. Wonderful. Periods of exhaustion and recoil into a reposeful and recuperative obscurity. He's not calling it laziness. He's calling it reposeful. Is her constant pursuit whenever she can get free from the trammels of her first vital and physical realizations. Trammel is, the word actually means a fishing net. Okay? So, but here he is using it in a figurative sense. Okay? So he is saying the difficulties of the vital, it traps you. So when you can get free, you have high realizations, you have high achievements, and then you fall back again into a reposeful, recuperative obscurity. So nature is going up and down, up and down. That's why, and you can see his ideas, he repeats in different words. If you remember, for the march of nature is not drilled to a regular movement. So now he's saying the same thing in different words. Okay. For here in man, we have a distinction which is of the utmost importance. He has in him not a single mentality, but a double and a triple. A mind material. The mind material is the physical mind. The physical mind is the manas, that which interprets your senses. Okay? And nervous mind, the vital mind. The vital mind is the second one. Okay? The pure intellectual mind is the third one. The pure intellectual mind tries its best not to be influenced by the needs of the body and the desires of the vital. It becomes objective. It looks at everything as it should, like a witness, without judging, looking at it without being affected. That's a pure intellectual mind. Srimdo often uses the word also reason for that, with an R cap. Okay? So, for here in man we have a distinction which is of utmost importance. He has in him not a single mentality but a double and a triple. The mind, material, nervous, the pure intellectual mind which liberates itself from the illusions of the body and the senses. So the pure intellectual mind, the best would be the higher mind. When the soul is outside and not trapped in the body-mind life. Okay? Which liberates itself from the illusions of the body and senses, and a divine mind. So here he is also talking, he is giving a slight different interpretation. The first is the material mind, then you have the pure intellectual mind, and then you have a divine mind. Above intellect, which in its turn liberates itself from the imperfect modes of the logical, discriminative, and imaginative reason. So, discriminative and imaginative reason is a spiritual place of consciousness. We don't have discrimination. Very difficult for normal man to have discrimination. To a certain extent, you feel, yes, I am able to see the difference between this and that, but it's never perfect. So, discrimination is one of the powers of the supermind. Okay? Revelation, inspiration, intuition, and discrimination. These are the four powers of the supermind. And when it comes down, these powers are there but very, very diluted. Okay? Mind in man is first enmeshed in the life of the body, where in the plant it is entirely involved. You don't see mind in plants. And in animals, always imprisoned. In animals, there is the beginning of mind, mental capacity, but it is imprisoned. Its hands and legs are tied. It can't use the mind fully. It can't develop philosophies. It can't invent the mobile. It can't invent the TV. Only man can do that. Okay, so these are the words that Shabda is using. In plant, it is, first of all, in body, it is enmeshed, solidly trapped in the mesh of body. So then, in the plant, entirely involved. It is not enmeshed but involved. Slightly better. And in the animal, imprisoned. It is there but imprisoned. The gradation you can see. Enmeshed, involved, and imprisoned. It accepts this life as not only the first, but the whole condition of its activities and serves its needs as if they were the entire aim of existence. But the bodily life in man is a base, not the aim, his first condition and not his last determinant. In the just idea of the ancients, man is essentially the thinker, the Manu. Manu is a philosophical concept. Manu is the first man. But there is no first man because evolution is there and slowly the mental capacity is developed. So Manu is a symbolic, the first man, okay, who has got a mind. The mental being who leads the life and the body. And there is a quotation from the Mundaka Upanishad, Manomaya Prana Sharira Neta. The mind should be the leader of the body and the life. That's what it means. Okay? Therefore, the true human existence, therefore, only begins when the intellectual mentality emerges out of the material and we begin more and more to live in the mind, independent of the nervous and physical obsession. And in the measure of that liberty, are able to accept rightly and rightly to use the life of the body. Only when the mind is free from the influence of body and vital, it can really play its part, its role. For freedom and not a skillful subjection is the true means of mastery. Now that's interesting. Mind should be absolutely free. It should not be a skillful subjection to the true means of mastery. This word skillful subjection is very interesting. What is man doing? If he falls ill, he uses his skill to get rid of the bad health. He uses medicines to that. So skillfully he is getting rid of the difficulties of the body. But that's not the real thing. Skillful subjection is not the true means. The true means is freedom. You must be completely free. Okay? So A free, not a compulsory acceptance of the conditions, the enlarged and sublimated conditions of our physical being is a high human ideal. But beyond this intellectual mentality is the divine mind. So, this is, you must make a distinction between a free and a compulsory acceptance of the conditions. Normal man compulsorily has to accept the condition of the body. Compulsorily. But he tries to get rid of the difficulties of the body with a little bit of skill. Medical skill, you can use the word. Okay. So that is a skill. But that's not true freedom. The true freedom is when your mind is completely free of the influence of body and life. Okay. But it's interesting. He's saying compulsory acceptance and free acceptance. There's a third. A free non-acceptance. The free non-acceptance is the ascetic. He is free and he says, I don't want to accept body, mind, life. Normal man, compulsorily he has to accept the limitations of body and life. The same way is saying, don't reject body, mind, life. Accept it, but freely, not compulsorily. So, 3 levels, na? Very interesting. The normal man compulsorily has to accept the body, mind, life. He is a slave. The ascetic says, I will be free and reject the body, mind, life. Same way saying, be free, but don't reject the body, mind, life. The gradation. Same way language is very terse, but you have to bring out the 3 possibilities. Now we can stop.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste all.